Everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So today I have a couple things to talk about. One of them is just a bit of news. I saw the press release that said that today, August 2nd, 2021, the crew has finished photography for season 1 of the new Lord of the Rings TV show that's been filming in New Zealand. So they are finished with photography. We will, however, have to wait until September 2nd, 2022 before we actually get to watch any of the episodes. So we've still got 13 months to wait before we see it. Apparently they haven't even titled the show yet, so some Lord of the Rings show with some title will be here next September. So looking forward to that, obviously. Now what I wanted to talk about was something wanted to talk about anyway, but it kind of ties in with this announcement because obviously the show is going to take place during the Second Age, which means a lot of it should take place in Numenor. The company has released one photograph of something. I'm going to guess it's Armenelos, the capital of Numenor. So I'll show that. That's the only official shot we've got, so it looks cool and I'm looking forward to it. But because it takes place in the Second Age, Sauron should play a pretty big deal in it. So, and Sauron was one of the characters I wanted to talk about in one of these Lord of the Rings episodes, because I find it interesting that Tolkien seems to have a weird love-hate relationship with technology. I guess in a way we all do, but it's interesting to me the way it shows up. You kind of see this in Peter Jackson's movies, where you get shots of the orcs at Orthanc cutting down the trees and throwing them into the fires so that they can melt the metal, so they can make the swords to give to the orcs to go out and make war. So it looks like, a orc's bad, cutting down trees bad, forging metal swords bad, right? And yet, all the good guys have swords too. A lot of the good guys are actually wearing armor, so they're not bad. But we don't see their forges, right? We don't see them cutting down trees, although we know they must be finding something to burn somewhere because they're making metal things. So you have this kind of weird, hey, sometimes doing things and making things is cool, and sometimes we'll just kind of pass by and not mention it, that, oh yeah, these people also have metal, which we kind of intimated that was bad to forge metal, but we'll just kind of pass over that. So the reason I find this interesting is that toward the beginning of the Silmarillion, we hear about the Vala, the powers, basically archangels, who come down to Middle Earth to make it into what they dreamed, what they sang at the beginning of time. So the way this happens is God, who's also called Eru the One, or Iluvatar, he helps them sing this great theme, and they see this wonderful vision of the world that could be, and then the vision is taken away, and God's like, okay, so if anybody who's interested, basically, you can go do that. But I'm not going to like be watching over it. You would be the ones who have to watch over it and do everything. And some of the Vala are like, yeah, cool, we want to go. Some of the lesser angels want to go with them. So you have these sort of greater angels and lesser angels, the Vala and the Maya, coming down to Middle Earth. It's kind of unformed. And so they then start trying to make it. They make mountains, they make oceans. And unfortunately, of course, one of those who comes along is Melkor, who's the big bad in the First Age and before the First Age. And so every time they raise up mountains, he tears them down. When they design oceans, he empties them. And they design valleys, and he fills them up. So before anything else is even created, the Vala and Melkor are having this fight over whose vision is going to win out. And so toward the end, they finally form the world of Middle Earth, and it's not the way they wanted it, but it's still cool and good, and it's still beautiful, and there's wonderful things in it. So Melkor wasn't exactly able to frustrate all their plans, so he didn't allow them to do what they really wanted, but they still got like most of what they wanted. Now, one of the Vala is named Aule, and I find him interesting in that Aule is the guy who invents the making of things, right? He's the guy who invents forging things out of metal and doing things with jewels. So he's the one who teaches Feanor how to do stuff, and then Feanor apparently creates the Palantiri, and of course Feanor makes the silmarils. So Aule is the one who's out there teaching. Apparently he is willing to give away knowledge. He's willing to give away the things he's made. So he doesn't. He's not greedy. He doesn't feel like he needs to keep things, but he is impatient. And so at some point, while they're still waiting and waiting for God to decide it's time to wake the elves up, he decides, okay, you know what? I'm gonna kind of go in secret, and I'm gonna make a race of my own, because I really, really, really want to have people to teach how to forge things and how to work with jewels. I want to invent a language for them and a culture, and I want to teach them, and they'll be my children. So he does, and he makes the 7 dwarf fathers. However, he gets caught out. God's like, hey, what you doing? When, of course, he knows what's going on. But Aule is immediately struck with regret. He's like, hey, God, I'm so sorry. You didn't tell me to do this. I just wanted to. I just wanted so badly to have children, to teach a language to, and to teach how to do all the metalsmithing and working with jewels. And I just wanted someone to teach. And so God's like, okay, look, that's fine. You're forgiven or whatever, but because it's not in my design for your creatures here, the dwarves, to be occupying Middle Earth before my creatures, which will be the elves and the men, they have to sleep for a while. They'll eventually wake up and you can teach them, but for now they have to sleep. So Aule does get to keep the dwarves as like his very own race, but he does then have to wait many ages apparently before Eru will allow them to wake up and become their own people. So Aule has got this kind of thing going where he loves to make things, but at the same time he really wants to teach. So the dwarves are all sleeping. He has other students. They're part of the Maya, and 2 of these students will later be known as Sauron and Saruman. And so what I find interesting about them is that both of these guys start out basically as sort of lesser angels, the Mairon, who want to make things just like Aule. They want to do things with their hands. They want to create wonderful things. But apparently Aule is just not a great teacher or a great, at least moral exemplar, because his students are the ones who end up being then the really big problems in Middle Earth, besides Melkor, who becomes Morgoth. And once Melkor starts doing his stuff, he manages to sort of like get Sauron over on his side. So Sauron becomes one of Melkor's main lieutenants. And of course, by the time Lord of the Rings happens, at the end of the Third Age, Saruman has like crossed over to Sauron's side, right? So he's working for Sauron. So it's kind of like interesting to me that the 2 Maya, who are the big problems later, start off with the same teacher and learning the same things. And apparently this sort of love-hate relationship that Tolkien had with the creation of things, you can kind of see here how these guys are the ones. It's not any other Vala whose little Maiar angels and her servants are turning bad, right? It's just Aule's and Sauron first of all. So we'll see Sauron, I assume, in this TV show, because during the Second Age, this is when he forges the One Ring, when he teaches Celebrimbor how to make the magic rings, basically. Celebrimbor is the one who makes like the elven rings. And the reason, of course, they're able to hide them, the elves, is that Sauron has no part of their making, except that, of course, he taught Celebrimbor how to do it in the first place, but he didn't actually make those rings himself. He makes the One Ring. At some point during the Second Age, though, after he started doing things like that, and the elves begin to distrust him, the Numenorians come and say, you know what, we're going to make you a prisoner. You have to come back to Numenor and be our hostage. And Sauron pretends that he's all upset at this, but actually he's really happy because that gets him to Numenor, so he can now start whispering in the ear of the king of Numenor, and eventually, of course, he gets them to do things like human sacrifice and stuff. So he is still working on his old tricks. But so hopefully we'll see some of that in this TV show. But I just wanted to throw that kind of thought out there because I do find it interesting that our big bads start off as Aule's students and then turn around and start, one of them turns around and starts serving Melkor, almost it seems right away. And then of course, eventually Saruman just takes that leap too and goes over to the dark side, so to speak. So that's all for today. I hope to have some more coming up soon. And, you know, if you want to talk about anything about Lord of the Rings, let me know. I would love to have more discussions with others who have opinions on the Second Age or the Silmarillion or any of these characters or the TV show. I'd like to hear about it. So let me know if you'd like to be featured in one of my Lord of the Rings episodes, and I will see you next time. Remember to like and subscribe and share this video around. I'd appreciate it a great deal and help this channel grow a little bit. Thanks.